Alright, everyone. So I actually recorded this earlier, and turns out my mic wasn't on. So after I took a few hours of a rage break, I am back. But I decided I'm just gonna keep the notes that I already had, and I will talk over it. And I actually make the videos a little bit faster, so there's less time. And you can let me know too if you prefer that, because then maybe I could just do that in the future where I have all my notes pre-written and I just talk over it instead. So this would be a good way to test that out, I guess. Yeah, so let me know if you like this, or if it's too fast, then I can, next week I'll remember to turn my mic on and I'll record the lessons as I'm writing it, right? But I wasn't about to rewrite them all again, so yeah, so just gonna start with the review, really basic stuff. I just wanted to start with factoring. Factoring is basically when you break down a number, and I use a lot of shorthand just to make it faster. So this hashtag sign means number. I'm just not sure. Some people don't know that. So, right, so factoring is when you break down a number into two or more numbers, right? So two numbers that multiply into that bigger number, right? So for example, you have 8, and you can break it down into 2 times 4, or you can break it down even further into 2 times 2 times 2, right? So, I spelled that wrong. Right, 8 is the product, and 2 and 4 are the factors. Or you could go even further and then write all the 2's, 2 times 2 times 2, those are all the factors that you multiply them together, they get 8. So you have 3 2's. Right, so one way to do this is just called a factor tree, right, where, you can do this in your head too, but I just think the visual is nice, right? So if we have 8, I break it down, I make little branches, like 2 times 4, right? And then I can break down 4 even more, right? 4 can be broken down into 2 times 2, right? And then 2 are what we call your prime factors. Okay, so you can break down any number into prime factors, and basically those are just factors that are prime numbers, right? So you can see the ends of our branches are all 2. That means I just can't break them down anymore, right? So a prime number, if hopefully this is a review, is a number whose only factors are 1 and itself, right? So examples are 2. All right, I can only divide 2 by itself, so I can get 2 times 1 is 2. 3 is another one, right? I can't divide it by anything else. I can't divide it by 2. I'd get a fraction. 5, 7, 11, 13, right? Prime numbers are usually odd, except for 2, because when you get even numbers, then that means you can always divide them by 2 at least, right? So typically odd, and yeah, it goes on for infinity. If you get into like coding and like encryption and stuff, then prime numbers are really important, finding like the biggest prime number. We're learning how to factor mainly because when we start doing more complex algebra, especially when we do fractions, things like that, you're going to want to break down your variables, like with exponents, things like that. You're going to want to break them down into their factors. So that's why we're really reviewing factors. This is all really basic stuff, but it's going to be really important later on in algebra, right? And we want to break it down into its smallest number possible, right? Its prime factors, right? So we did 8. I did 2 examples of 24 earlier, right? 24, you can break down 2 times 12, right? So then that 2 branch, it ends. I can't break it down anymore. I can break down 12, 2 times 6, and then I can break down the 6, 2 times 3, and I'm left with 2 times 2 times 2 times 3, and if you were going to plug that in a calculator or do it in your head, it should be 24, right? And then I just did it another way over here, mainly to show you that maybe you don't want to divide by 2 first off. Maybe you're like, oh, 4 and 6 are factors. So, and then I can break down 4 into 2 times 2 and 6 into 2 times 3. And as you can see, I still get 2 times 2 times 2 times 3. So I've broken it down. I've factored 24 down to its prime factors, right? If I were just going to break it down to factors, I could just say 4 times 6 or 2 times 12, but we want those prime factors, or you have to at least know the difference between them. Okay. But I wanted to show you two different ways, just so you know, like, you're going to get the same answer either way. So whatever, maybe you're more comfortable with your 4 times table, your 2 times table, your 3 times, whatever. Just know you're going to end up in the same spot. Right? That's kind of the cool thing with like math and algebra. People will find lots of different ways to get to the same result. Okay, and I just did another example, 14, a really simple one where it just so happens that the only factors of 14 happen to just be prime factors, right? I can't break down 2 or 7 anymore. Okay, and then a quick review of a negative number. Right, so a negative number is just a number below 0. Or if you were going to look at a number line, a number to the left of 0. Right, so here's my number line. Anything to the right is positive, anything to the left is negative. I think the best way to think about it is just in terms of debt, right? 0 means you have no money. If you're in the positive, that means you have some money in the bank. If you're in the negative, that means you probably owe the bank some money, right? Maybe overdraft or something. Then you're in the negative, so that means if you've overdrafted, then the next time you get paid with your paycheck, then it's immediately first going to pay the bank what you overdrafted. And then sometimes they even have an overdraft fee, which is really messed up. But yeah, that's the reality of it, right? So you have either less than $0, you're in debt, you owe somebody money, or you have money, you have more than $0, right? Or you have $0. You don't have any money, but you also don't owe anyone any money. Right, and a review of symbols. Right, the greater, I just made it greater than or equal to. Right, this is the greater than, this is the less than, and this is the equal to. Hopefully this is review again. Right, what I did earlier, and I guess it doesn't really matter because you can already see it, but I'll just do it again. Right, with comparing numbers, so anything to the right is always the bigger number, right? Bigger number is always, right? So if we were gonna like graph these 1 and -2 on the number line, right? 1 is right here, -2 is right here. As you can see, 1 is on the right. That means the 1 is greater than, right? And that makes sense. You have $1 or you owe somebody $2. So whenever you would get the $2, it should immediately go to the person that you owe money to, right? So having $1 is better than owing somebody $2, right? It gets a little tricky when you have like 2 negative numbers, and people will automatically sometimes think like, oh, 4 is bigger than 2, but not when it has to deal with negative numbers, because remember, you have to think in terms of debt now. It's better that I owe somebody $2 than $4, right? That means I owe them less money. That means they're going to take away, like if I had $10 and I'm like, I should pay my friends back, it's going to be better if I only have to pay back $2 versus $4, right? Because then in the end, if I only owe $2, I'm going to be left with $8. If I owe somebody $4, I'd be left with $6. So in the end, I'd have more money if I only owed somebody $2, right? So that means -4 is less than -2. And if you look on the number line, right, that -4 is to the left, -2 is to the right. The bigger number is always to the right, right? As the more and more right you go on a number line, the bigger and bigger your number gets, right? More and more left, smaller it gets. Okay, -3 compared to 5. Right, hopefully that one's obvious. Being in debt versus having $5. Right, and I just did like a big number because I think it's easier to see the difference, right? Owing $100, maybe like paying $100 in rent every month versus $500. You're gonna end up with more money if your rent is, you're only owing $100 a month, right? So yeah, so that's kind of just like really basics, going over factoring and what a negative number is, some of the basic symbols, and now I will move on in a new video to adding negative numbers.